Welcome to Flex Factor with Marc Navarro, the podcast that cuts through the noise to bring you the best strategies and insights in the coworking world. Produced by SpaceBring. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Flex Factor. This week, we have the pleasure to welcome Uri Iskin.
Hi, Marc. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to join you today.
Yeah, actually, we used to have this kind of informal conversations, but this is the first time that we are recording ourselves. So it's not, I guess, it's not informal and it's not private anymore. But I invited Uri because I think it's one of the stakeholders of the industry. Uri is the CEO and co-founder of HIT. It's the largest serviced office network in Argentina. And they actually have presence in Argentina, Chile, and Peru currently. 10 locations already in Buenos Aires, and then you are expanding in Brazil, Colombia, and Mexico.
Correct. That's correct. Yeah. We have 10 locations in Buenos Aires, one in Peru, in Lima, one in Chile, in Valparaiso. We're about to open in Mexico City. And we are currently under construction of a new site here in Argentina. That will be like our 13th location, and the 14th will be in Mexico.
Mm-hmm. How many square meters?
Yes, we are currently at 50,000 square meter or 550,000 square feet.
Okay, nice. How would you explain who is Uri Iskin besides this data, and what is HIT?
Okay, I think of myself. Okay, I was born in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro. I had to move, early in life to Buenos Aires. And I've been growing here since then. I'm married to my loving wife, Argentinian, with three wonderful kids, young kids, for the age from 7 years old to 12. And I believe myself of connecting people, technology, and spaces. I think that's also my bio on LinkedIn and X, and I think that's what connects me, through my career. I studied economics, marketing, and I had to, starting managing a business and developing myself as the CEO of this company that started, as from zero, from scrap, to this scale, leading the market here in Argentina and, expanding our business through Chile, Peru, Mexico, as I told you before, with a business partner, Gabi Butcher, and our other co-founders, Alejandro and Ariela, who started up this real estate company, and our co-working business started as a business unit, and then developed itself as a new company. And I find myself always curious, always eager to learn, to develop myself, the people around me, and I really enjoy what we're doing here.
You mentioned technology. Could you explain the audience what's behind the letters HIT?
Okay, yeah, of course. That's actually the acronym, for Hoteles de Innovación Tecnológica, like technology innovation hotels. That's because our origins was in a neighborhood here in Buenos Aires, which is called Parque Patricios, in the south side of the city, where the city government changed a law to give some tax benefits to develop that neighborhood, and that's where the first building was developed. In our other business unit, that's real estate. And that's what it stands for. That's always also attracted those kind of companies, which, of course, those were the companies that started getting interest and attraction to this kind of service solution for more spaces, outsourcing, experiences. What we are doing, and right now, of course, we are in the other side of the market where every company has interest, in this kind of business and services. But okay, that's where we started, right? Catering for those type of companies from that side of the city.
Yeah, amazing. When was it founded?
The real estate started in 2011. Co-working business opened our doors in March 2015. We have right now 10 years old.
Okay, any celebration planned or any celebration that took place?
Yes. We celebrated our anniversary, our 10 years anniversary already in March with the last opening, from where I'm having this conversation with you. It's HIT Argibel. It's in the Palermo side of the city. It's where, a cool place to be, to live, to work. And we celebrated here, and also it's 5 years from the beginning of the pandemics, and that's also interesting to consider, to think upon it, right? Because a lot of changes we've been through, and also with the hype of the industry, with big players getting high up and then high down, and the pandemics as well, and all the impact in the real estate industry, and all the change we're doing and acting on, and a huge, enormous, industry, and we are changing, impacting lives and styles of work and businesses, and helping them, go through their own, focus and activities. So it's a lot. It's really interesting.
Yeah, we have gone through a lot of changes these last 5 years. Mm-hmm. But you know that I don't invited you here to just chat, because I told you from the very beginning that you know that there are 4 content lines, and one of them is Coworking Untold in the Flex Factor podcast. And I told you, hey, I'm inviting you, but I want you to be in the line of Coworking Untold. And that line, basically, it's all the topics that are around, but nobody wants to talk about them. Some of them briefly appear in some private conversations most of the time. Some really burst in flames in conferences or other industry talks. But most of the time, people is not talking about that. And I just want to start straight away. Which are the, let's say, 5, maybe it's more than 5, maybe it's less than 5. Which are the challenges that you see? The next challenges that the industry must face?
Okay. I mean, there's probably many challenges, right? One is we are disrupting and challenging an industry, but I really believe that we have to do it a lot different from what we can see from the, perhaps, financial services, as fintech were born, giving their back and aiming towards the traditional banking sector. We have to do it different, because it's much more evident as we really need, the real estate industry for us to flourish, right, and for us to expand our business. So I think that's a first challenge, right, because we operators really need to understand the strategic thinking of real estate players.
Actually, it's quite interesting that you mentioned banking, because in the banking industry there was some acquisitions of startups, to improve maybe the apps of the banking, right? The acquired team just worked on the banking app, offering the advantages that people was seeing on those startups products, but also happened in the industry that some real estates acquired some operators, right? So yeah, it's interesting. I never thought about it, but it's actually something that happened, has something in common with that.
Yeah, and that's challenging, because when we started our business, probably, the whole industry saw us as a tenant, Hey, you're a tenant, you pay the lease. And with the consumption shocks, right, the demand shocks we've just been through, exposes a different role for us, right, the operator role, where we are shifting our expansion model and our commercial or agreement scheme with those landlords as a management scheme, as a profit sharing, as a revenue sharing, and we're all shifting there. So, okay, how can we really like engage in those aspects? How careful we have to be, in order to make that happen, that really happen, and that poses, a good challenge for us operators. That's one, and another challenge I see is how can we keep, convincing companies that this is the best option for them. I remember when we started out, for example, we named ourselves HIT Cowork, right? Because we are the co-working business unit of HIT, a real estate company, developing office buildings with quality. We started in our first years catering to corporate customers, like large enterprises. We focus there, much more from our known competition for years from now. And in a 3 years time or 4 years time from the beginning, we decided to drop the co-work word, because co-work in the common mindset, it's usually, an open space, shared office space where I can have no identity or no exclusivity in an office room private for my company. And so we dropped that word to challenge that mindset, to follow on from that conversation. But the real thing is, I know, like companies, when they come from the traditional lease model, they, started asking for, the wrong questions, right? They say, hey, how much does it cost the square meter? And, you receive that question and you want to answer, not that question, but hey, how many people are you? How do you work? How is work done in your company? And let me, help you getting with that. Because, of course, the first thing we always see as operators is, hey, you are using, more square meters than you actually need. And why not, increasing or decreasing those square meters, those services behind those square meters as you need, and that's what most challenging for us to explain, to change that culture of a way of consumption from those large companies to understand this. Also, another huge question I remember is, now, if I need, more than 500 or 1,000 square meters, probably I have to do it myself. I cannot, outsource this with you. It makes no sense for me. And today we cater for, contracts for 500 people, companies. So it sure does make sense, and that poses another challenge, right? We have to be able to talk to the landlord community and explain, hey, we're not tenants, we're operators. And that's a difficult, thing to make them understand. And we also have to be able to speak to companies and make them understand why our proposal makes sense and will be good for them, And of course, there is a lot of segments in this market and a lot of we are like one solution for different type of problems, because of course startups and freelancers also need this kind of space and solutions, but they come here for different reasons than perhaps a large company will do, and of course that also poses another challenge that for me, in my view of and the vision of this industry, will come for segmentation of the market, where we perhaps activity-based and perhaps, for, quality-based perhaps, even like the hotels experience industry shows us, right? You have hostels, you have hotels, you have travelers, business, you have 5-star, all-inclusive. And I think, if we grow where I see this industry will grow, and as perhaps, some reports from JLL and CBRE also show us, right, that in 2030, 30% of the square meter stock office of the market will be handled and will be operated through this model, I think it will also pose another challenge for us that will come through, market segmentation, being more. I mean, we have the ability as operators to expand our business, through opening spaces and also through, being more profound, more value added in the services we cater for our customers. And through segmentation, I mean, we'll get much more focus and value added services for them. And that's another challenge, I think.
Yeah, let me come back a few phrases. You mentioned CBRE, JLL, and brokers. And I'm interested in discussing a bit about brokers, because if you remember in the last CWSC, Gaby Spin, the CEO of Atico, which is the third biggest player in Spain after IWG and WeWork in terms of square meters, he mentioned it was one of these fun sessions in which the public asked anonymous questions to the speaker. And one of the questions was about brokers' commission, right? So brokers are a really important stakeholder, but on the other hand, there's a little bit of polemic about the commissions, which are the rules for standard real estate leases and which are the rules for coworking operators. And I would like to pick your brain and get a little bit of that information. They are intermediaries in the industry. They are a necessary evil. They are an ally. What are they? Could you develop a little bit on that?
Of course. I think the relationship, we can build with them could be, much more positive than it appears to be at first hand. And I think there's a lot of contradiction, because you just said, hey, there is a standard here. There is a way of doing business that they are intermediaries in a traditional, office lease market. And we are challengers of this, statu quo. We are disruptors of this market. As I said before, I have the view that we can challenge things and disrupt this market, not giving our back, but giving, our hands for it. And I think, as I said, hey, we have to be able to change the mindset of the landlord, change the mindset of the company decision maker. And we also need to explain and to make, the brokerage community understand, the services we're catering for the companies and how we're doing business. And of course, our economics, who will also perhaps state, hey, no, perhaps this, fee of commission or standard way of doing business have to change here, because we are bringing flexibility to the market. We're bringing, perhaps shorter terms of contract to the market, and we cannot be able to consider, perhaps, a larger fee of down paying, up front the commission, and perhaps it have to be, a monthly sharing with them. The effort is really different. The effort the operator is doing to bring that customer to giving the facility and of course making it easier for the decision of the company. It's much more different, for the broker when he has to bring a company to a new office space and make a $3 million investment. So I think that also must be, reviewed and perhaps changed, of course. We are struggling, in our experience with HIT, with those brokers. I think I told you as well. I remember one time, perhaps, in large companies, it sure happens that, we have a lot of strong customer relationships, with our business partners, and they contact us directly, hey, I need office spaces, I need this or that solution. But they also hey, no, but you have to go through this broker, because he's the one that, my corporate HQ in Dallas, in wherever, in Europe, asked us to go through this broker. Okay, let's do it. I'm fine with it. And of course, then comes the commission. And it doesn't look fair, that's what I'm saying. And then, hey, you start building a relationship and they, go through a 3-year term contract, and then comes the renewal. And then, someone goes knocking on your door saying, hey, it's a renewal. We have to, commission on this. And okay, there's some things that doesn't look right, but hey, let's put them on the table and let's have a good business, conversation. No, showing your back to this and just try to take a shortcut that doesn't exist. Because I know in other markets, but here in Argentina, one strong competitor, global brand, I don't need to name it, started out here giving its back to that brokerage community, and something broke there. It's not a good thing to do as well. That's what there's a lot of contradiction here.
Yeah. So trying to summarize for the people that it's maybe not following this discussion as we have been doing for the last maybe at least 2-3 maybe more years. So the problem is that in a 5 years lease, for example, which can be a standard in many countries for an office, the brokers get 10% of one yearly payment, right? So that's 1/10 of 1 year. So it's of the 5-year contract. So it's actually 2%, right? Yeah. But then in a flexible workspace contract of 12 months, if you get that 10%, it's 10%. It's not 2% because the contract is 1 year. And so this is issue number one. And what Uri is pointing is the fact that if you are working to get a standard lease, you have to go through a much more comprehensive process, right? Like renovations, a lot of managing, also sometimes with other stakeholders, like like the companies, permits, etc., right? And then on the other hand, you have when dealing with an operator, you have only one stakeholder that takes care of everything, because that process is part of their daily operations and it's part of the value that we as coworking operations provide to our clients. So this is the second problem, right? It's like the process is much more straightforward, it's much more easy, so it's less of a problem. So it shall, the brokers, what Uri is saying is, shall be okay maybe reviewing that fee because it's less work for them. But then there's a third problem, and it's also something that was talked in the last CWC, which was when a renewal happens, right? That you would expect that if the client wants to stay, it's because you and your team did a good job, so they want to stay. But then someone from the broker knocked your door asking for a renewal fee, willing to get that 10% again. And this is something that, in this case, Uri, because I invited him to the podcast and put him in this position to talk about this broadly, is pointing out. It's something that Gaby Spin Formatico mentioned in the last conference, and I think it's something that it's worth talking or discussing.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have the recipe for this, but you have been in the industry for 10 years. Have you seen an evolution in this process? Because when I get back to the industry in 2011, and we start operating in 2013, I don't know if at that time we can talk about an actual co-working industry, but it was a highly disintermediated business, right? I mean, the customer went directly to us. And I think that with the evolution of the system and with all those links that the co-working or the flex work industry has with real estate now, these intermediaries have a much stronger presence. How do you see this historical evolution?
That's a good question. And before answering, I think another problem is that the traditional brokerage goes for the office space lease, and we have to remember that we have like 3 building components building up for the price, the final price that the customer pays. That it's the real estate asset, the equipment, the investment of the fit out of the office and the service. So, in the standard, the broker, commission on one part of our business, and when they come here, they are commissioning for, a much larger business. So that also poses the challenge. And
That's a nice point.
it's interesting. Yeah, I understand that. Of course, as I told you, right? Challenges, contradictions, and hey, let's put them on the table and discuss. If I see any difference or any evolution on this, quite frankly, not as I would like to, but then again, our 10 years are a lot of posed by, strong shocks in our sector, strong shocks in one of the big competitors that show their back to this community. And I think they are starting to understand, our sector of the office market. And there's a lot of, changes going on perhaps, I don't know, for citing a few, CBRE and JLL, they have, departments, areas of market survey for our sector, the flex office sector. They are, there are special brokers for that kind of services needed from the companies, and that's a good evolution we're seeing. Also,
but they also operate some spaces for landlords.
Yeah, that's what I was going to tell you. If I not only look into HIT history, that we are like a small fraction of a huge market, we get to see, the recent move from CBRE, wholly acquiring the second largest operator in the U.S. market and global market, right? So they are taking positions, and that's how they get to be less traditional and more open-minded, including, those operations into their capabilities. That's
In
the
Spanish?
I'm seeing. I'm not seeing an evolution in the traditional broker that, okay, right now I understand better your service. I think that challenge continues.
In Spain, we say you cannot be judge and part, an interested part, right? Do you think that this can apply here? It's dangerous.
I think yes, it can apply here. I think yes, it can be dangerous. I mean, it will be like, I know how to say it, but it will be like a decision for each operator to see if it continues to do a business relationship with those brokers. I remember when the news of CBRE and Industrials were really fresh. I was having a call, that day with some CBRE brokers from Miami. We are like looking some opportunities there, and I remember asking that question directly for them, and they. I believe they answered like, those big lost firms will do. They can, have and represent, counterparties, customers. And they really I know how they manage that, but they build really a wall, and they can do it without conflict of interest, or at least they tell you that. I saw the same reply, So it will be for the operator company to decide on that. But probably, the operator, if you have vacancy in your place and comes CBRE and says, hey, I have a customer, you say, come right in, and you'll discuss the commission, and you're
good to go. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
What future trends do you see in this intermediation kind of space?
I see like a trend in disintermediation. Through technology, I think we'll see much more, a direct relationship with customers and operators happening, and of course I also see those, with the platforms model, the like the booking.com for hotels, okay, the booking.com for office. I believe there has to be a much more standardization of the industry than we currently see for that to happen. I think that will last a couple of years more to to really like get through the market. But
When
this
you're
intermediation.
talking, sorry to interrupt you. When you're talking about this is related with what you mentioned before, like categorizing more, being like all inclusive, 5 stars, 4 stars. And I'm happy that you mentioned this because also Manuel in the last episode also talked about this problem.
Yes, I really believe that, and of course, I think the standardization problem have to be addressed before we get to see much more those marketplaces for us and the disintermediation for it to happen. But I think it's a current trend, and it also is happening right now because also we have like the macro factors, but also the micro is happening, and the shift is going through. So I think yes, for example, for us, if I get to see hey, what's the most representative sales channel, I can see how the brokers channel has like decreased its mix of its share mix, from before, and we're getting
Surprising.
more customers recommending customers, companies growing at scale and asking and demanding for more services, it gets to it happens for us, I don't know if it happened for everyone, but yeah, I mean, we're really like customer centric, obsessed, as we like to think, and all of our growth, was organic, was customers demanding for more services.
Great. And regarding the industry, what would a future ideal scenario look for you?
I believe in consolidation of the market. I believe this market started like with a high fragmentation. There's many small operators and a few large ones, and I really believe in the strong commercial relationships that we can like manage with our customers, with the companies that chooses us. And I think at scale you can like deliver more value added service to them. And I also believe that you can be more efficient in your operation costs, and also deliver that value added for the customers, and it really makes sense for me that to see some consolidation happening. Also, it makes sense that large, developers, landlords, and perhaps from adjacent industries, like perhaps hospitality, perhaps retail, logistics, wherever, will get into the business as well. I think that's how you can scale up to 30% really of the market, if it will happen. That, which I believe it will. Like as you see the software company in the 80s, perhaps every company was building up their own servers, hardware, and software. And right now it's a click away from the software as a service, or for us, space as a service. I think it will really like be massive.
Actually, when you were talking earlier before, you mentioned that there were like this kind of different services, that we are one solution that tailored to different clients. You made me remind a talk I had with a stakeholder in the industry back in 2020, but we were talking about before the pandemic. And he mentioned that at some point the operators started talking like a completely different language from the client, right? So some corporative clients start telling this person, hey, I want, let's say, 100 square meters to create an office. But don't tell the operator how many positions do I want, because what I'm offered, if I ask for the number of positions, it does not match what I need, right? So I think because we as operators thought in like positions, and then the square meters develop from that, right? Coming from a market of really competitive pricing and trying to fight for that and make the business competitive. But then this kind of bespoke office model appeared So it's a different solution that as operators we are offering, but which does not challenge our standard model, right? Because the standard model is working for really cost-sensitive clients, but on the other hand, we developed a new product for a different need, right? But we did it once we realized that there was like this disconnection because the need was actually quite different, right? So one of the things that I think that in these 5 years changed a lot is the creation of a lot of different products to cater these different needs for each customer, because there are really, really different categories in the industry.
Yeah, I follow you, and of course, the office space is changing, right? It's changing every day, and of course, from 5 years back to 5 years from today, it changes a lot, right? We realized that's a social space, a social gathering space. And that's why, for example, we open new business units such as HIT events, where we're catering, for social and corporate, events as, from end of year parties, launching products, or, even like wedding or birthday parties. We're like really turning around, those square meters to operate not only from Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 p.m., but, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, at evenings, nights, and there's new things happening, right, in the office. It's not more, this cold space. It's a warm, it looks like perhaps, your home, or, a fireplace, or, a cool bar you want to go. So things are really changing, and we are like turning the product around, right? The product and the services. Food and beverage as well, catering for those events. It's another business unit for us. And we are looking for a new frontier, for wellness services, right? We love to say, like, we really care about how you work, and how you work is also affected by the space, the experience you have in the space, and yourself, right? You have to feel good with you to be the best version for you as a professional player, and we want to help, companies and people with that, and we are like increasing, not only, opening up new spaces, but opening up, more services oriented to this common goal for us, right? That's challenging the way we work, right? Really impacting on that.
And with this thought, we are going to leave, because we could be talking for hours. Thank you, Uri, for being my second guest in this podcast. Thank you for sharing and talking about something that most people won't be willing to talk about, and for challenging the system in some way. If you want to say something to the listeners.
Thank you, Marc, for your insights. I mean, I think this is one of our conversations that we have to by phone, because you live in Spain, I live in Argentina. And I think we just had a really good session here. It made me feel very comfortable with your questions. And I hope this can have a positive impact on other, stakeholders from this really interesting industry. And thank you.
Remember, you will be able to find the link of HIT, also the Uri's profile in LinkedIn. But if you want to meet him in person, he will be attending CWSC in Madrid in the 27th and 28th of May. And he's really, really nice to everyone. So if you visit, just come to say hi. And if you have doubts, I'm sure he will be very pleased to talk with you and discuss. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This episode is made possible by SpaceBring.
SpaceBring automates tedious tasks, boosts efficiency, and helps retain members. Are you ready to streamline your co-working space? Check out the links in this episode description to learn more.